Good evening, guys, and thank you so much for joining our segment tonight. You guys know my name. My name is Lanisha. I have my co-host Adrian with me.
Hi, guys.
Tonight we'll be discussing the Bible and things that we don't understand, and seeing maybe if the audience can answer our questions, or if our audience wants to come on and join us one day, please don't hesitate. Leave a comment at the bottom, or please email me at WALLACE26LANASHIA@gmail.com, and we will definitely respond as soon as possible. I just want to give you a little background of my co-host before we do get started. You guys already know my background. If you don't, please go ahead and tune into the first video that I did post onto YouTube. And it was the actual video that you could see us. Sorry, this is recording. We did do a first recording and we didn't get recorded, so we're going to do it this way and find other ways to progress from here. But Adrian, on to you. Can you tell us if you grew up in religion, and if you did, what religion was it, and how did that religion impact you as a person growing up?
Okay, so hi, guys. My name's Adrian. I was raised in a large family of 5 brothers, 6 sisters. Most of us was homeschooled our entire life. My mom is a very devout and holy Christian. She believes she's non-denominational, but now as I do research, I'm seeing the denomination she actually is a Jehovah's Witness, but she just don't know about Jehovah's Witness, so she don't know she's a Jehovah's Witness. So she was like a very strictly by the Bible. So growing up, that's of the stuff we was taught. You know, I thought it's just regular, but just like a way of life. It's just now, after I started going to like school, so I went to Ohio State for 3 years, and just as I began to learn more, learn about history, and learn about basically just life, I'm seeing lots of the stuff that she taught us and believe may not be 100% true. So as for how has it impacted my life, now I'm honestly not sure how it has impacted my life. If somebody was to ask me 2 years ago, I probably would have said, the Bible made me what I am today, holy and righteous. But now going further, I can see, those things I question about the Bible, but I still act what people would call holy and righteous. So it's making me think morality is more like they are born with, not necessarily, it have nothing to do with the Bible. At least that's just what I think. Okay, back to you.
Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and get in, and Adrian, did you want to go ahead and start from the beginning, and we can take it from there?
Look, give me 1 second. I'm reading from the New King James Version.
A lot of people actually read that version. I'm actually not going by that version. We're actually going to, as we go through the whole Bible, and as I did also mention, guys, we will be probably moving after the Bible to Buddhism, and see what's going on in that book and what keys we can find within there. And I don't know if it's a book or what's the terminology, so if I do respect the ones who do study Buddhism or practice it, I do apologize. Please don't hesitate to correct me with the correct terminology. I am here to learn just like you guys as well. So Thank you so much for joining us, and we shall begin. Oh, but I'm sorry. The version that I'm going off is the Holy Bible Today's English version with do not quote me on how to pronounce the name. So I am going to struggle with it. So it's with Detro Canticles Apocrypha.
Sounds
good. That's the version that I'm going with, and we also will be what is it? Comparing it with the Hebrew versions in Word as well, because that is the. I'm actually let Adrian give you a background of the Hebrew Bible.
Okay, so as everyone knows, the most popular version of the Bible is the King James Version, which, I mean, it's alright, but unfortunately when the Bible was translated from Greek, well, no, actually, so started off Hebrew, then went from Hebrew to Greek, and then went from Greek to, well, I guess the rest of the world. But the problem, the Hebrew version have some words that at least English did not necessarily have. I'll give you an example.
Well, we'll actually give you examples as we go on, because there will be a lot of terms that we are going to compare before we even get to the third page. Okay, so go ahead, Adrian.
Okay, so shall I begin?
You shall.
Okay, so that I'm beginning. This is the very beginning of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters.
So I was wondering if we can pause there, and if we could start with the Hebrew versions, because with your first sentence, you said that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In my book, it says in the beginning, when God created the universe, the earth was formless and desolated.
Okay, so an interesting fact that at least I find interesting is between the first verse. The first verse was, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and then the second verse was, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. So there's actually a theory out there called the gap theory, which that's the theory that between the first two verses was millions or maybe even billions of years. Like meaning like in the very beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Because I guess originally in the Hebrew version, it should be translated, the earth became without form and void, and darkness was on the deep. Like implying like the earth was once perfect, right. Then something happened. So when we read in like one paragraph, we kind of get the feeling like it happened one after another, but there's a theory out there that actually years passed and something happened. And me, since I've always been like a big dinosaur fan, I've always wondered if that explains why we find these fossils that's millions of years old. Because it could have been like the earth was around, those dinosaurs and other prehistoric. Mm-hmm. Something happened. The earth became chaotic and barren and darkness.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, supposedly there was before Christ and after Christ, and we all know dinosaurs was here before Christ. So
yeah, so we know it would have had to have been sometime in the period before Christ. So the way they divide history with BC before Christ, then AD after his death. But the things, the human history already we really only focus on the AD part. There's just so much of the BC that, nobody can even like point out how old the Earth is. I know like evangelicals believe the Earth is just like 7,000 years old, but as we can see from scientists,
or even trying to connect the seas together,
there's millions of years of history that we can't account for. Okay, shall I continue?
we do account for, but we overlook at the same time. But yes, you shall. Because I would like for you also get into the part where where it talks about the darkness over the sea, and I guess God hovering over it.
Okay, that's actually where I stopped at. What did your version say?
Okay. Let's go here. It says, the raging ocean that covered everything was engulfed in total darkness, and the power of God was moving over the water. Now, that to me, with God moving over the water, that's a symbol that I'm taking out of the Bible as far as oxygen, air. Because later on it does talk about, when it talks about how he created man, and the same symbol comes again. But what was your version that you did, Adrian, in your King James version?
The King James, it just said the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. So, the only thing that I think it may be significant is, like, if God's Spirit is in the air, it's just like sitting there. Basically, I guess I've been confident, but what I'm saying, so it makes you wonder if that's right. We need oxygen to live. Well, every creature needs oxygen to live. Is that because even plants? Is that because it's like the Spirit of God? Mm-hmm. That's just a theory I have. There's no way to necessarily prove it, but it's just an interesting point
and key that we pulled out of the Bible. So, shall you go on, sir?
Yeah, okay, so now I'm on to verse 3. Then God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So evening and the morning were the first day. Okay, so just a couple of points that I want to say. One thing, so in the Hebrew, it's very translated as he just said, light be, and there was light. Which, the only thing that is significant about saying that there'll be light almost make it sound like they're asking permission for the light to come. But I actually saying light be just shows his power. But he just said lights come, and then light came.
I didn't get that. I was thinking more like, how they show in the magic shows, boom, like abracadabra, boom, and it pops up. And then also, my version, it says, then God commanded, let there be light, and light appeared. Now, also in this area, what I got out of it was God at this time was learning himself and what he could do. Because it kept saying that he, what was it? Like he was satisfied in what he saw. He was pleased. Mine says pleased. I don't know what yours says.
Mine saying God saw that light was good.
What's the word?
It was good.
Okay. See, mine was pleased. So just let me know as he keeps doing certain things, his magic progresses and he's good with it. You know what I mean? As he's commanding, as more he uses it, the better he becomes. And as you read, as he interacts with people, you can tell he's learning as well. But I'll point those other ones out as we go. But continue, if you like.
Okay, so just one more point that I forgot to bring up was the way saying this was the first day. Now, in the Hebrew language, the word they use for day is the same word for day, days, or ages. So, like, some people aren't actually sure, like, was it actually just one day, meaning a 24-hour day, or was it days? Was it ages? Which this is very important, because since there's a division of how old the earth is, you know, the evangelicals point out the Bible said the earth was created in 7 days, and then they're able to count from that day all the way to today, which is just why they believe the earth is just 7,000 years old. But, you know, since we really don't know the context, days, weeks, and day, it could have been, and this was the first age, which could be, you know, millions of years. Or centuries, as millenniums.
And maybe it might be millenniums, and that's why we celebrate the new millennium. You know, each time we have one. Did you want to continue?
Yeah, so now I'm on to verse 6. Then God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, it just repeated what I just read. Okay. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day. Now, I'm curious to see what the other version says.
Okay. Starting from verse 6 through 7. It says, then God commanded, let there be a dome to divide the water, and to keep it in 2 separate places. And it was done. So God made a dome, and it separated the water under it from the water above it. And then if I read on to 8, he named the dome sky. Evening passed and morning came. That was the second day.
Okay, so there's not much that stand out to me with that. The only thing I was wondering is it referring to the atmosphere?
No, why are you saying that?
Because this was but I just saw the version say dome. Because those verses, verse 6 to 7 and 8. Have been one that I really have never been able to understand, like divide the waters from the waters, but probably the Hebrew version will share more light into it.
Okay. That makes sense, because it said he named the dome sky.
Yeah, that's what I just realized just now.
Yeah. Alright. That's deep right there. Go ahead.
Okay, so now on to verse 9. Then God said that the waters under the heaven be gathered together in one place, and that the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and gathered together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good.
That's another place where he was learning. Once he commanded it, he's saying, oh, well, I feel like that was in order to do these different things, like to separate the earth from water. That was a magic trick, or whatever you want to call it, move, and that he learned. And then he learned another move why it probably took about either years or days or hours or centuries, because he was learning a new move to create something else different to add on to the earth. But go ahead. And that's why he was so pleased after he's seen, oh, wow, it worked. You know what I mean? Let me continue to make different things and learn different, So go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to go to verse 11. Then God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seeds, and the fruit tree that yields fruit, according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, the herb that yields seeds, according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the third day. So I just want to point out the order of the creation so far in Genesis is mirroring the order in which the scientists say life began. Like, according to the scientists, there was just water. The green shrubs and stuff came later, way later. And then as we go forward, there's then going to be life. So it's just funny the way it's following exactly the way the Bible. The only difference is the scientists say it took millions of years, and some people think it just took days in the Bible.
He's preparing for man, basically. As man would have starved.
True there. Okay, so now on to verse 14. Then God said that there will be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and seasons, and for the days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light on the earth. And it was so. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also.
I'll stop you there. Now, mine says different things, but close. And then I also have a question after I read my version. So, in my version, it says, then God commanded, let lights appear in the sky to separate day from light, and to show the time when days, years, and religious festivals began. Now, if anybody knows, please tell me, what are religious festivals? It's not Christmas. What is it? Or does this now apply to other religions? Because other religions have religion festivals. For example, the Day of the Dead for the Mexican holiday. That is a religious festival. So, if your religion, if you have a religion, if you go by religion, please tell me which religion holidays are, and by leaving a comment at the bottom, or once again going to the email wallace26lanisha@gmail.com, which is WALLACE26LANASHIA@gmail.com.
Okay, so now I'll start at verse 17. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Then, okay, now I'm off on to verse 20.
Do you want me to read from here? You want a break?
No, I'll keep going. Then God said, let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens. So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that move, with which the water abound, gave it to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, and God blessed them, saying, be fruitful, and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. So the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Okay, so it's just something that I always find fascinating is when I see in the King James Version, he changed the word. So I guess in the Hebrew version, the word for creature is the same word they use for souls. But I did some research and everything. So like King James was offended that like the Bible was implying that animals have souls. So he changed the word to creatures. So basically every time you see the word creature, they should just mentally just put souls. If we're supposed to say that the waters abound with an abundance of living souls, so God created great sea souls and every living thing that moves. So basically it seemed to be implying that animals do have souls, that like every living creature has a soul.
Okay, that's a good point that you did make there. And also speaking, now that we are on the subject of King James, of not liking things, it was also that he took out the book of Exodus, is that correct?
No, Enoch.
And it was one of the E ones. Enoch, excuse me. And because he didn't like it. So that was just a little fun fact to put in there. Things to think about as, for the ones that do follow the King James Version.
Because that's significant, because basically every version now just follows the King. The King James version is like the main version, and every other version just fashions it off the King James. Like this version, I read it, the New King James Version. The only thing different is they took out the D's and thous and speak in plain English, but it still is following the King James Version. Okay, do you get it?
And mine basically is falling behind because I don't have the book within mine. You stopped at the 5th?
Yeah, it's the 5th day. Yeah. So verse 24.
You're doing okay. Then God came, and this is my version coming from here. Then God commanded, let the earth produce all kinds of life, of animals, domestic and wild, large and small. And it was done. So God made them all, and he was pleased with that he saw. Then God said, and now we will make human beings. They will be like us and resemble us. Now I'm going to stop here, okay? Because this makes me do all types of wondering things. Now God is talking about us. No, humans weren't made yet. Okay? So who is us that the Bible is referring to? Now, what is your response? What did you get from this? And what does your version say, Adrian?
Okay, so my version says, then God said, let us make man in our image.
So yours also says us, but continue on.
According to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.
So who is us? Is the question. Who is us?
Okay, so I've just always interpreted by us, he's referring to himself, the Holy Spirit, the angels, and his son Jesus.
Who were the angels?
Well, I mean, so he created the angels way before, because there was angels before the earth was even formed.
So are we made in angels form? Because the Bible does tell us that angels are men, you know?
Yeah.
And in the book that was removed from the Bible, talks about the angels having sexual intercourse with humans, which created giants. And just to relate that for today, life, we have tall people, and I'm talking about 6'7" foot. So if you're 6'7", that lets me know, are you one of the kids, one of the ancestors of the angels who have relations with the humans? But we'll probably get on that Bible, or excuse me, that book later, once we get to the area where it would have been. So, let's see, finishing up with verse 26. They will have power over the fish, the birds, and all animals, the best they can wild, large and small. So God created human beings, making them to be like himself. He created them male and female, blessed them, and said, have many children, so that your descendants will live all over the earth and being it under their control. I am putting you in charge of the fish, the birds, and all of the wild animals. Now, if we could jump back up to the part where God said we're going to make man in our image. Now, also, at that time, that would be goddesses and gods around that time. Which would probably most been likely to be, would it have been the Holy Ghost? Would it have been the angels?
You mean the goddesses and gods?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, see,
or we would be the goddesses and gods.
Oh, no, it's definitely not us. So, my thinking with the legends of the goddesses and gods, so I'm thinking that they came later, as we was talking about, when we get to the part with angels mixing with humans.
Making giants. Which is our taller humans.
Yeah, even
NBA players, I would say, point out. But go ahead.
Yes, because I actually think, it's actually like some of the. So that's just so talk about when God had the angels guiding mankind. According to the book of Enoch, like each angel had a certain skill that they taught the people. So I really think that the goddesses and gods that the Greek mythology talk about were just the angels.
So you think the angels were the goddesses and the gods?
Yeah, because each one, like there was an angel of war that taught man. If you believe, the book of Enoch that taught man about war and how to make weapons, there was an angel who taught man about astrology and witchcraft.
So that makes you want to go think about the gods that we did learn growing up, which was the Greek gods, the Roman gods, the Egyptian gods. Now we had, and goddesses, let's not forget our goddesses, because we also had Cleopatra, okay? We also have Ra. We have Miss Nayat. We have Ashun. We have Hercules, I'm not too familiar with the Romans. Do you know any Roman gods?
So I don't know about the Roman god, but like those Achilles and all of those people, and some of those characters are actually like supposedly like a mixture between a god and a human, which that's interesting because the Bible talks about that. So.
And Mayat, if you look at Mayat, she is a goddess who is the goddess of judgment, love, all types of things she is, but she's mixed, but also Indian and black at that.
But I mean, we are getting way ahead of ourselves.
Well, there is so much to talk about, so much to break down, but that's the point of having, keys to the land, because we're pulling them, and that's why we're here today breaking down the Bible as well as the other books that come along. But,
yeah. So before we move on, just something else I found interesting. We just read about how he created man in his image and told them to multiply, be fruitful, fill the earth. But this is before Adam and Eve.
And also, now that you're mentioning that, he's basically, excuse my French, people, but he's telling them to be sluts, okay? Go out and do your thing before marriage. In today's life, a lot of people are doing that. A lot of people are not waiting until marriage to lose virginities and stuff like that. So I just want everybody to really analyze the book analytically and pull things out that actually pertain with today's lives. Did you have something to add to this, Adrian?
No. So the point, I was just saying, just notice, this is before Adam was created. This was before humans, before Eve was created. But let's talk about humans and multiply. So it makes you now wonder, was there life before, was there humans before Adam and Eve was even created? Or if Adam and Eve are two different, versions of humans. Because it's funny, they talk about he created mankind, then this is before we even get to Adam.
Yeah, and this is, my version says, so God created human beings, making them to be like himself. He created the male and female, blessed them, and said, have many children, so that your descendants will live all over earth and bring it under their control. So God told them everything to do all this, right? But later on, when we get to Noah, he gets mad because they're doing just what he wants them to do, and floods the town. But we'll get into that next here soon.
Eventually, yes.
We have some time. There's 20 minutes left.
Okay, so where did we stop at?
You actually stopped, in my version, would be, we're on the second chapter, I would say, because we went over,
no, but we didn't read.
Before we get to Eden.
Yeah, so we're on verse 29, actually. Yeah, okay, and God says, see, I have given you every herb that they'll see, which is on the face of the earth, and every tree whose fruit they'll see. To you it shall be food. Also, to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, and in which there's life, I have given every green herb for food, and it was so.
Can I pause you there? So, what is the Hebrew version word for beast? Or what was, do you know?
For beast? No, I do not know the word for beast, because I don't know every word with Hebrew. The only way I know some of the Hebrew stuff, when I was growing up in my mom house, we used to watch I don't know if any of you know TBN, a Christian like cable network, and there was a preacher who studied Hebrew, and she like pointed out some of the Hebrew stuff. So I don't know the Hebrew version for every verse. It's just the significant things that she talked about.
Okay. Did you want me to begin?
Oh, I just let me just finish first the one. Then God saw everything that He made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So that's the first chapter. So now we're on to the second chapter.
So on the sixth day, humans was already created. Man and woman was already created. Alright? So in the second chapter, basically going into the Garden of Eden. And so the whole universe was completed by the seventh day. God finished what He had been doing and stopped working. He blessed the seventh day and set it apart, a special day, because by that day He had completed the creation and stopped working. And that is how the universe was created. So is that also how we got the lucky number 7 as well? Because He's so pleased. Everything was completed on the seventh day. Alright, on to deeper into the Garden of Eden. So, when the Lord God made universe, there was no plants on the earth, and no seeds had sprouted, because He had not sent any rain. And there was no one to cultivate the land, but water would come up from beneath the surface water of the ground. Then the Lord God took some soil from the ground and formed a man out of it. He breathed life-giving breath into his nostrils, and then the man began to live. Now that right there is also symbol to me as air, oxygen, because God once again blew some type of wind, okay? Because first, remember, He hovered over the water, and basically that created waves. And we know, unless something underneath the water is creating the wave, above the water it has to be some type of wind, which is actually air / oxygen. So, did you have anything to say about how Adam was made?
No, but first, I want to just talk about it before. I just realized, again, this is an example of it makes me wonder, is the Bible going backwards in verse 2? No, it just talk about how He created the prince.
Flashes.
But
humans was already made.
But we have already read He created prince on the third day, and now it's talking about it had a wing there. So it makes me just wonder: are they going backwards? If there's something more deeper that we need to discover.
It looks like they're having flashbacks in the Bible, because it says man was created on the sixth day, and then seventh day was completed, and then now we're talking about man being created.
That's what I've always wondered, is Adam something different? Because as we go on later, we'll see there seem to be more humans than just Adam and Eve. But then now to get to the point, the only thing to me that stood out was verse 7, and God formed man out of the dust of the ground, and He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being, which I guarantee it probably supposed to say, and man became a living soul. But the thing that struck me was so man wasn't living until He took the first breath of life. Well, it actually says exactly breath of life. Because when people's always having the long debate about when does life begin, I've always been under the impression life begins with the first breath. Because the Bible talks about, He made, it's just like the body. Then man didn't actually start living until they took the first breath. And then when you look at like when babies are born, whether it's a kitten or a human, you notice they're like born. Then it's when they take their first steps of air. It's then when they become like a living soul. Okay.
All right. So most likely we're going to get to Eve here in a second. So then the Lord God planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he put the man he had formed. He made all kinds of beautiful trees grow there and produce good fruit. In the middle of the garden stood the trees that gives life and the trees that give knowledge of what is good and what is bad.
Okay, so does it say? Do the verse say trees like or is it a tree of life?
Tree.
Okay, that's what mine says too.
That says that he made all kinds of beautiful trees. So sorry if I put an extra S on them. Let's see here. A stream flowed in Eden and watered the garden. Beyond Eden, it divided into 4 rivers. Now, this is the interesting part. You might actually want to look up the map. We probably will discuss it here in a second. Alright, so let me just start from the beginning. A stream flowed in Eden and watered the garden. Beyond Eden, it divided into 4 rivers. The first river is the Pison. It flows around the country of Havilah. Pure gold is found there, and also rare perfume and precious stones. Now, rare perfume. Now, we know perfumes come basically from flowers, right? Mostly from flowers.
Yes.
And spices. I'm not going to sleep on spices. So I'm just shocked there. So letting you know there's some fields around there. Scratch valleys. Alright, but go ahead. Did you have something to say on this part?
Yeah, so the only thing I want to talk about, so nobody really tried to know who wrote the book of Genesis or even when it was written. So it's just the parts when they are describing the land, the masses, and the countries. Like, I'm not sure at what point it was just written. So it's kind of hard to know, like, exactly where they're talking about. Like for example, Israel today is different, way different than the Israel in the Bible times. So in Genesis, if they talk about, and this is where Israel is, they kind of don't know, like, at what time, because nobody really know who wrote Genesis. The common theory is Moses wrote it, but nobody is 100% sure.
Good facts right there. Alright. So, the second river is Gihon. It flows around the country of Cush. The third river is the Tigris, which flows east of Assyria. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. Then, did you want to talk about the map?
Yeah, so, like I was saying, the land was different. The common, like, assumption in belief is in the Bible time, like, the land was just, there wasn't continents. There was just one continent. Because the belief is it didn't spread until after the Noah flood. Which even today we know that every year the place move about, I believe they said, like, 1 centimeter every year. That's why, like, at one point we know South America was connected to Africa, and how even the geologists talk about the one in South America have the same type of stone that the one in Africa has.
So is that probably where it's talking about where the earth became not round or perfect, I guess, should I say?
Yes, that may even be what they're talking about.
Okay. So continue on.
Okay, I guess we are first written. So then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree in the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. And I mean, so my question, I know is a question that many people have, like, what was so significant about this one tree of knowledge of good and evil? Then, I mean, if it was the knowledge of good and evil, would it have been a good thing to eat, so they would have knowledge of what's good and what's evil? So,
to acknowledge that you were doing evil when you didn't know you were doing evil.
So to me, this is probably one of the greatest mysteries of the Bible. That, like,
why didn't God want us to know that we were doing evil?
Yeah, I mean, then what was this tree?
Acknowledge. Was it because he didn't want us, but we still kept doing it, regardless if we knew if it was evil or not. Because we didn't know it was evil.
And why was there even a tree? No, I mean, there's just so many questions they can ask. And as we see all the trouble it caused from eating, so, like, could it have been angels guided the tree? There's just so many questions. There's so many questions. So why, if it was that serious, why have a random tree it was somebody could eat?
That's true, because the land of Eden, it does say further along that it was guarded by knives with fire and some other things. So why couldn't the trees have at that time been guarded by some type of booby trap, like the Garden of Eden period? But go ahead.
Okay, so now 18. And the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. So I should just one trick day, but but on the day 6 he told man, like, to multiply, to fill the earth. So, like, exactly, so how was exactly man multiplying? I mean, if there was, so I would have thought female would have been into praying for the very beginning, but from here it seems like
and fornication.
It wasn't the praying for a female. So how? So it does beg the question: how was man, like, multiplying? But was everybody just having babies regardless of their gender? Like,
or were they able to create man like God was creating them? From dust, from dirt. Since we started having periods to create a baby. But really, he actually made it painful. We were already having periods. So we already knew how to have sex then.
That's what makes me wonder. How some incest and even reptiles.
And also, not to cut you off, did knowledge just come to us back then? Instead of we have to learn the knowledge, did it just automatically come to us? Since it seemed like we already knew how to have sex without it being taught. We knew how to love. Like today, we know how to love. We are born to love. We are taught to hate. So it just lets me know, once again, that tree of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
But anything else right there?
No, that was it. So now verse 19. Out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to Adam. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute, where are we?
My 19 says, so he took some soil from the ground and formed all animals and all the birds. Then he brought them to the man to see what he would name them.
Yeah, okay.
And that
okay.
it is how they all got their names. So the man named all the birds and all the animals, but not one of them was a suitable companion to help him.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so now we're at verse 21.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept.
Now, did he give him something? What did he give him? Was it a plan? Was it the natural plants we use today, which we call our antidotes and drugs, or anesthesia drugs? What did he give Adam to put Adam to sleep, to where Adam did not feel God opening? Okay, because we know when we get a little cut, it hurt. Okay. Nor did when Adam woke up did he say anything about pain. Okay. So I'm just wondering, what did the Lord give him?
Yeah, so this I just realized was the very first anesthesia and surgery ever performed on Earth.
Mankind.
Then the web which the little guy has taken from man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my breasts. She shall be called a woman because she was taken out of man. So that there, I'm not really sure what does that mean. So did the W-O mean something in Hebrew? Because I mean, how does woman mean she was taken out of man?
Well, I can read. You want me to read my version?
Yeah.
Okay. Then Lord God made the man fall into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took out one of the man's ribs and closed up the flesh. He formed a woman out of the rib and brought her to him. So, boom, right here in mind lets me know that wherever God did the surgery on Adam, he did not make even the same area that he operated.
Yes.
Okay? And what's the reason for that? He didn't want Adam to see Eve if she wasn't perfected.
That's what I would assume.
Wow. And that's why women are so beautiful to men. But let me continue on. Alright. Then the man said, at last, here is one of my own kind. Bone taken from my bone and flesh from my flesh. Woman is her name because she was taken out of man. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united with his wife, and then became one. The man and the woman were both naked, but they were not embarrassed.
Okay.
So that's basically also telling man and woman that we need to be comfortable with each other. You know, regardless of what sizes we come in and shapes and colors. So maybe that's also why marriage is an important thing today, because it will show the true love that was created when woman was first made and introduced to Adam. And I guess that's where they came up with the word true love. But go ahead.
Okay, so that's the end of the second chapter.
And I think we could go ahead and discuss third chapter, which in my book is called The Disobedience of Man. Now, just the name alone is very strong, but we're going to wrap it up. And I do thank you for attending tonight and giving us so much love. We do appreciate it, and we give you love back. Au revoir. Buenas noches. Until next time. Thank you. Don't hesitate to leave any comments. If you would like to join, we can definitely phone you in or make some type of arrangements. If you have any questions, we can definitely address it on air or however you guys like to do it. But we do thank you and have a great night.